So we're going to learn a little bit, Kavod Rosh Hashanah, Kavod Elul. We're going to learn a little bit about the Shofar. What is the Kavanah of Shofar? What is the intentions of blowing the Shofar? And to understand a little bit what the Ari writes about, the Arizal speaks about the blowing of the Shofar, what the Kavanah of blowing the Shofar, and what it's explained a little bit Chassidus, according to the Baal Shem. So Behekden, before we get into this, we have to have a few akdamas, a few short akdamas. In general, one akdama klolis, not particularly connected to Kiyas, is that the blowing of the shofar is Alu Likim Besrua Hashem B'Kol Shofar. That Alu Likim, Likim is connected to the Trua, the name of Likim is connected to Trua, which is the broken sound, and Hashem is connected to the Kol Shofar. That Hashem, the purity of Hashem, the infinity or the transcendence is connected specifically to the Kol Shofar. And not only to the sound of the shofar, but particularly also to the idea of the coil. So in general, there is sound, which is coil, and there's dibur, which is speech. Mishamayim mishmat kalecha, that idea of coil, sound, is connected, the Arizal connects it to Shem Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei, Hashem Betrua, to Hashem, and dibur, which is Basar Moras Nivra Olam, which is the idea of creation. Dibur already is an externalization of that, is connected specifically more to the name Elokim. So Elokim is connected to Dibur, and Hashem is connected to Koil. Hashem is connected, Koil is connected to Shamayim, and Aretz is connected to Dibur. The basic difference is that Koil sound doesn't have any pratim. Yeah, it doesn't have ischalkus, doesn't have differentiation, doesn't have separation. Sound, right, sound doesn't. It's just one sound. Dibur is already through the chitach path, you take a sound, undifferentiated sound, you use the potentials of the mouth, you break up the sound. When you're breaking up the sound through the five potentials of the mouth, the hegvuris, which is the lips, the tongues, the teeth, etc., you break it up. So now the ha sound now becomes a sound of a particular vibration, which means that it's connected to Dibur, the world of speech. Very simply, the idea of shofar is trying to get to the place of the origin of creation, like the highest source of creation. So because it's like connected to the Teitzei Chaim, the tree of life, beyond the tree of Eitz Hadas Tevirah, which is duality and separation, Ischalpus, we're trying to get to the origin of it. So that's why it's like the shofar is connected to Shifra, to Meshaperes Havlad, the idea of birth. So we're connected to the essence of the creation. Since it's connected to the essence of creation, we're going back to the origin, to the place of Achdus, a place of unity. Therefore, we want to blow the shofar, we want to do it with a coil, with a sound, specifically with a sound. I just saw today from the Rameh Ben Gabbai, in Soida Shofar, he writes also why the Mishnah says, Kol HaShofar is Ksheim Chutz Mishal Para. So the Mishnah says that all the shofars, any shofar you can blow is kosher besides the one that's done with a para, with a bull, with a cow. So the Gemara says because you can't. It reminds us of the Chet HaEgel, it reminds us of the sin of the golden calf. And the Gemara also says over there because it's because it has many different layers. Galdi Galidi Kishnei Shofars Damitz. It has many different layers of shofar. It's not one tube, one empty tube. And the Rebbe Gabai writes that the pshat is yesh chalom harbe u'moyer k'tzasu period. One al kavasenu liyachad advarim hamshach harachim lechaber echad liyisachad. That the whole idea is the idea of achdus. We want one unity, so even the kol of shofar has to come from a place that represents unity. Okay, so this is the general idea between what we're trying to achieve on Rosh Hashanah, this idea of the coil. Now, what does Rosh Hashanah have to do specifically with shofar? Like, why is Rosh Hashanah called Yom Trua? That means that it's specifically connected. So Rosh Hashanah, also a general overview, very general, is that Rosh Hashanah is not the beginning of the creation, but it's the beginning of the creation of man, right? Because Chafei Elul was the beginning of the creation, and Zeh Yom Tchilas Masachem, when it says it's the beginning of creation, we're not talking about we're taking the creation of the human being. Now, there's two types of creation. What we'll call, there's a creation through the name Elokim, Bereshis Bar Elokim. Elokim creates. That's one form of creation, which happens on the 25th of Elul. That's one form of creation. And then there's a higher level of creation, which is Vayibach V'asam Nishmas Chaim, that Hashem blew into his nostrils a breath of life, which means that Adam became a Chelek Elokah, someone that has a divine aspect to it, a divine image. Now, what's the difference between these two perspectives of creation? One creation is what is called Chitzonis Oilamis, and one is called Pnimis Oilamis. One is like the external aspect of creation, and one is the internal aspect of creation. What does that mean? For example, if you're doing something, if you're doing an action, and you don't have any tainug, you don't have any desire in doing this action. Okay, you're chopping wood because let's say you have to chop wood because your house is cold and you need wood to chop wood. Let's say, right? So you're chopping the wood. So because you're doing something without tainug, this type of creation is called achorayim. It's called a creation of the external, which means you're doing it. If you just superficially you see the person doing it, the person's actually doing the action, but he's not in the mood. Or let's say you're working something you're not in the mood of doing. Now, what's pnimius? A pnimius type of a panim type of relationship, which means a face to face, which means that you're doing something, but it's doing something and you're having a geschmack in doing it. You're having a desire to do it. Is when you understand why you're doing it. That's one reason, and B, not only you understand what you're doing, but you're actually enjoying it. So and that's two levels. So let's say you're doing something and someone tells you, "I need you to do this for me." Let's say your father or someone that's your wife or your husband, whatever. Someone says, "I need you to do this to me," and you say, "I actually don't understand why I have to do this to you, and I certainly don't have tainug, I don't have pleasure doing it. But if this is what you're asking me to do, I'll do it." So you're going ahead, you're doing the motions. That's a type of doing that's chitzonius, it's external, because the act is actually being done, but the pnimius of the person's not involved. But if you do something and someone says, "I need you to do this for me," and the person says, actually, it actually makes sense why you need me to do this to you. So the logic is there. When the logic is there, there's a little bit more pnimius of the person is involved. A little more of the internal part of the person is involved. Now, what if the person also has tainug of it? The person has a geschmack, has a desire, likes doing it, then more of the person is present. So two people can be doing the exact same action, right? One has only the chitzonius, only the external. One has the pnimius, one has the internal. So when we talk about Rosh Hashanah, that Rosh Hashanah is a recreation. There's this chachas habri. There's a recreation of the creation. We're talking about both madregas. We're talking first on the external level of creation, but much more relevant to us is on the pnimius level of creation. On the level of Nan Hashem Elokim, which is the external connected to the dibur, to the speech, but more on the level of koil, which is going to be connected to the pnimius, to the internal. So I'll say, if you don't blow Rosh Hashanah, the shofar, what's going to happen? The world will not be created. I didn't say that. The world will be created, but there won't be a desire to create. There won't be the ratzon to create. There won't be the tainuk to create. There won't be the seichel to create. So let's see a little bit from what the Arizal says, and then we'll try to tie it a little bit what the Baal Shem says. So in the Arizal, it's very dense, but we'll try to understand a little bit over here. You see Achar Kach on the first page, Pri Etz Chaim, Shar Shofar, Shar Chavav. So you have in the left column, Achar Yevarach Olav B'Kavona Arui L'Birchas HaMitzvos. Then you should take the shofar, the first page, and the second column, you should pick up the shofar and make a bracha. V'Nikin Havai K'Moshe B'Shil V'Shemus Niskar. Okay, that's the name should be Yud Kei Vav Kei. You should have the Kavona, the certain particular vowels. U'Ba'Omer Teves Koil. That's important. When a person says the word L'shmoya Kol Shofar, so you're making the bracha and saying to hear the sound of the shofar, not L'shmoya Shofar, L'shmoya Kol Shofar, specifically the hearing the sound of the shofar. Yechaven Shahakoil HaTachten, you should be mechaven, you should have intention that the Koil HaTachten, the lower sound that you're creating through the blowing of the shofar, Ma'oyer HaKoil Elyon, that's going to awaken the higher sound above. So you are creating a koil. You're creating an undifferentiated sound. You're blowing out the tekiah. And by you blowing the tekiah, by you blowing and creating the koil, this sound, what you want to achieve is to inspire an awakening of the koil, of the cosmic koil, of creation. It doesn't say what that is, but that's what you're doing. You're doing koil to awaken koil. Ba'amar milah shofar, and when you say the word shofar, so you shmoya kol shofar, you should have intention. Hashin the shofar, Shin in numeric value is 300. Hu misper Elokim de Yudin is the numeric value of the name Elokim that's connected to Yud, which means if you spell out the name Elokim, Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, and you spell it out, so Aleph is Aleph Lamed Pei, and Lamed is Lamed Mem Daled, and what he means, filling it out with the Yud, means the Hey is Hey Yud, not Hey or Hey Aleph, Hey Yud. The Yud is Yud Vav Daled, Mem is Mem is 80, so 80 and 20 and 15, and Lamed Mem Daled is Lamed is 74, and Aleph is 111. Together, the numeric value is 300. Okay, that's the Shin. So when you're mechaven, you're saying that the name of Elokim, when it's spelled Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, spelled out Aleph, like Aleph Lamed Pei Hey Yud, exactly. Then you get the number 300. Upei Vav, now you have Shin from the Shofar, which is 300. Pei Vav, the Shofar, Misper Elokim Pashat. Pei Vav is actually the numeric value of the name Elokim is 86, right? So Pei Vav is 86. V'Reish, the Shofar, then you have the Reish. Hu Misper Elokim Biribua. That's the Misper Elokim, also Biribua, squared. So what does it mean squared? Squared means when you do Aleph as 1, then you write underneath Aleph Lamed, which is 31. Then underneath you write Aleph Lamed Hey, which is 36. Then Aleph Lamed Hey Yud, which is 46. And Aleph Lamed Hey Yud Mem, which is 86, 46, etc. The numeric value would be 200. So what you're doing is, what you're doing is you're drawing down from the name, from Koil, which is connected to Hashem, the undifferentiated, the Rachamim, this pure sound, and you're drawing it down into the Shofar, which represents all the restrictions and constrictions and limitations that the name Elokim represents. Then he says, very quickly, we'll read this very quickly, also Shin Vav, the Shofar, im Yud Dal Pikir Yad Achim Hu Gematria Shinchaf. Also the Shin Vav 306 of the Shofar, together with the 14 parts of the hand, right? There's 2 and there's 3 in each finger, so that's 14 parts. That's why Yad is called a hand, because it has 14 parts. So if you hold the Shofar, and the reason why it's Stafka mentioned the idea of hold the Shofar is in L'Kut Lev Yitzchak, he writes that the reason is because the Shofar, the shear of the Shofar is actually to hold it, and you can see it from both sides. So the Yad actually is very important. So since the Yad is important, which has 14, so 14 plus the Shin Vav is going to be Shin Chaf. That represents the Shin Chaf Dinim, which is 320 Dinim. And that's called Dinim Duchrim. That's called the masculine Dinim. Shin Chaf is Shin Chaf. It's a big number. I don't want to get into details, but it has to do with like Arpach. The Teitzei, you have the 248, so it's minus 3, 1 time of Elokim. There's 10 times the name of Elokim in the beginning of Bereshis. And then there's also Shofar's Gematria Matzapach. Par, Pei Reish, is the Matzapach, the final 5 letters of Mem, Tzadik, Pei, the final letters of Matzapach, of Nun, Tzadik. And the numeric value of that is 280, which is called the Par Netzoitzes. And that's why it's connected with the Shoyish Lehei Gvuras Oile Gematria Para. That's why the Para generally is the Para Duma. Okay. That's one thing. So anyways, the point is that what Arizal is saying is that we're trying to draw down like pure chasadim, pure kindness, pure light, to break down all the concealments and all the constrictions that exist in the world. Then he says, like this. Okay, there's a lot of inyanim that he talks about over here, but let's try to see one. Soda Shofar. Okay, we're going to read this quickly. Soda Shofar, like 2 columns later, 2 paragraphs later. Tzarech Leida, miyu hatekeya, miyu apeh, umiyu ha-shofar. Umiyu ha-koil. What's the koil? Da, shekar g'dam l'sha'ata b'yom Rosh Hashanah. This is what the Arizal talks about early in the Priyatz Chaim. Hazun b'soid acher b'acher. That Zohar Ampin with Nukva is an asoid of acher b'acher. And I'll explain what that means. Because then last day they are mita da filu av imul za. If I got to say that the mitzvah Allah zun the pnimish lem b'soid man ma'im nukvim b'soid sech. Without on mitzin oisay de shofar. So basically, there's a bechina which is called acher b'acher. Achar ba'achar means when two things are attached together, but they actually have no desire to be attached together. So they're attached together. Like I said, if you're doing work for something, right? So you are connected with the work that you're doing, but there's no desire for it, and there's no understanding of it. So the achar ba'achar is the state of the world before the human being, before Adam and Chava are created. Because the world up until the point of the creation of the Adam is in a state of achar ba'achar. Why is it in a state of achar ba'achar? Because there's melucha and there's memshala. Hashem, Hashem is hamlucha. Hashem is hamlucha. That Hashem is connected to the idea of melucha, melech. What's the difference between a moishel, an enforcer, and a king? A king, by definition, means a melech b'lo am. Right? That's what the Rishonim write about. That there's no king without a people. A king, by definition, means that there's an equivalence. The king is desired by the people, and therefore the people say, we want you to be our king. We ask, we want to have a king. A moishel is a dictator. A dictator means, I don't care what you want. I say that this is the way it should be. This is the way it's going to be. So in the pre-creation, before Adam and Chava, the world was in a state of achar ba'achar. Why is the world in a state of, before there's human consciousness, right? Before there's someone that says, I'm choosing to be in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the world is always in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? The tree is doing exactly what the tree has to be doing, and the animal is doing exactly what Hashem wanted it to do, and everything is doing exactly what it has to be done. But in terms of the relationship, Hashem is a moishel. Hashem is a dictator, right? Kaviyachol. Hashem says, I want the tree to be a tree. The tree doesn't have free choice to say, I don't want to be a tree any longer. Right? The tree is doing exactly the will of Hashem. So it's a zivug tmidi, right? But it's achar ba'achar. It means the unity is always, it's a continuous unity between the creator and its creation. But the relationship is achar ba'achar. There's no desire, there's no passion, there's no understanding. It's just doing what it has to do. That's the name of Elokim. What happens on Rosh Hashanah? On Rosh Hashanah is the Bria Sa'adam. Adam and Chava were created. Adam and Chava were created. They receive a divine aspect, which is Day of a Dibur. They receive a higher level of awareness, which allows them to speak. What do? What happens? Adam Rishon was created. He says, let us collectively recognize that there's a higher power in this world. So what Adam does to the creation, what man does to creation, is he allows the creation to have a relationship that's panim al panim, that's face to face. In order for there to be a relationship with face-to-face, there has to be a drawing down of moichin, of intelligence, and there has to be a drawing down of also tainuk, a pleasure. Okay, so let's talk about this in terms of the spheres. If Malchus is the creation, okay, that's the container. Zohar, which is like the six midos, and that's why the world is created through the six midas, represents the masculine chayas, the oir that's given into this world that gives life to Malchus. When Zohar Ampin, which also is called Kutchabrichu, is in relationship to Malchus, that they're connected, but it's achar ba'achar, right? So then the relationship doesn't have any chayas. What happens on Rosh Hashanah by night is called a Nesira. Nesira means there's a dermita de zog, that the zog goes to sleep, kaviyachol, which means it's a night of eternal slumber, which is Zohar Ampin and Malchus separate from each other. Zohar Ampin becomes less active. There's less chayas. That there's we once spoke that the difference that when we have this word kol tzama, that kol tzama, the Arizal says kol tzama is kalim, levushim, slabim, oyers, moichin and oyers. That it starts from like a pure oir, and then when you want to give it language to say what that oir is, we'll call it intelligence, moichin, and then the moichin becomes like a more levush, more tool becomes into a levush until it comes to a kli, it comes into the actual vessel. So, if you think about this in terms of like a connection between things, in order for one thing to be connected with another thing, the thing has to be alive. It has to be like an Ever Chai. It has to be an alive thing. In order for it to be an alive thing, then it can connect to the other thing. If the thing is placid and is not doesn't have chayas, then it severs apart from the other thing, right? If it's not alive, whatever that alive means. You can use all the type of definitions of the aliveness. But if there's aliveness, that allows for detachment. If there's no aliveness, it detaches. So when the Zar Ampin receives from Abba Ve'ima, which is the Moichin, which is called Moichin, intelligence, right? You have Chachma Bina, and then you have the Zar Ampin, and then you have Malchus. So when Chachma Bina withdraws its Moichin from Zar Ampin falls, right? Falls asleep. When Zar Ampin falls asleep, this is all obviously, this is a mashal. When Zar Ampin falls asleep, Malchus separates from it. That's starting to separate from it. Now it's a possibility to separate from it. Because before it was attached to Zar Ampin, it was the Acher Bacher, they were attached. There was no possibility for Malchus to become separate. But the moment Moichin is drawn out of Zar Ampin, now Malchus can become separate, it can become its own surah, it can become its own form, it can become its own parts of. Now there's a lot of danger in this process, right? Because now it's an independent thing. Right, that's why it can be a unique l'chitzonim. This is the problem. This is the problem of free choice, is that it allows for the possibility to choose something that's wrong. We could choose something that's incorrect, but the only way we can have a real relationship is if we have a free choice. So that's the unique l'chitzonim. That's the mitzvah. So it's pulling apart. Now, what you want to do, essentially, what's happening in Tkiyah Shofar is you're drawing down new moichin into Zar Ampin. That's the whole kavanah zari in very simple language. You're drawing down new moichin into Zar Ampin. Now Zar Ampin becomes alive. Malchus is already independent. So now Zar Ampin and Malchus can have a relationship with both receiving moichin. Because there's a little part over here is that once Malchus is separated from Zar Ampin, it still exists. So that Arizal says that now it's existing from moichin of Chachma Bina, not through Zar Ampin. It gets almost an independent moichin. So it's a smaller level of moichin, so it's still asleep. It's not fully activated. But once it's reawakened and it becomes connected with Zar Ampin, now the world becomes an activated place where we can have a panim relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So all the kavanas of the Ari in general is the Tkiyah, Shvarim, Truas, Chachma, Bina, Das, or Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, all these types of structures that the Arizal will have, all these kavanas, is really drawing down moichin into Zar Ampin. So Zar Ampin becomes reactivated. Now it can become with Tiferes, with Malchus, and now we can have a new world of a panim. And interestingly, that it says b'shem Baal Shem.
How do they get disconnected? Rosh Hashanah.
Maybe should disconnects them. What do you mean? It pulls out the moichin. Yeah, it's a chalai. That's a nasir. That's
not doing something.
No, nothing happens. No, it happens on its own. Like the story, literally like the story of Adam and Chava, v'nafal of Tardema, to separate Adam and Chava. The same thing also the separation. So, if you're not aware, if in other words, if Rosh Hashanah by night, if you're just just living Rosh Hashanah by night like a regular, then Rosh Hashanah by night is like any other night. But if you have a certain sensitivity, what you should be able to feel, if you have this higher level of sensitivity, is a certain level of the withdrawal of the moichin. It means the world still is existing. It's just not as active. There's a less or there's less a pnimius activation. It says b'shem Baal Shem that he, before Tkiyas, he used to say, Ir und ich und Gott. This is what he used to say. That he used to say, Ir like you, und ich, and also I, und Gott, and Hashem. That was the three things. Yeah, that's the intention. It's brought down by many early tzaddik, many Talmidei Baal Shem, like the Noam Melech and the Moav Shemesh, a lot of the Rimzei Shofar. They all say that the main kavanah of Tkiyah Shofar is you're standing in front of Hashem and Rahman Ahmed Koy. That's it. Hashem to blow the shofar, you blow the shofar. But the Ir und ich und Gott is an interesting phrase because it's like Istakam Shloisha Dvarim Ve'ena Avera. It's the looking at the three things before Ma'ayim Bas Elon Ta'ilach. That's already an interpretation. The three things is to recognize you in front of Hashem. That's every relation, everything in the world is Ir, Ich, and God. If it's a table, then it's the Ir, the table. But there's always Ir, Ich, and God. But if you do this on a gematria level, so Ir, if it's spelled Aleph Yud Hey Resh, is 216. 216 is Gvura. Ich, Aleph Yud Chaf, if you do this on a gematria level, is 31, which is Kel Chesed Kol Hayom, which is Chesed. And Got, Gimel Aleph Tov, is 13, which is Gimel Rachmim, which is Rachmim, which is Tiferes. So Chesed Gevur Tiferes. I don't know if that Baal Shem means this, but somehow it's all connected with the same idea, but you're drawing down Moichin. That's one madrega that he talks about. Then Then the Arizal says a little bit more in depth, and he writes like this. Okay. Amnon kisha adam toikeya oz ponimus admin. I think we're going to miss this page, so I have to go into the adam toikeya. At the end of the page, it says when the adam is toikeya, the person is toikeya. The person blows the shofar, his face turns red, and that represents the Mekoira Koilus, the source of the coil, and you're not going to have it. So it's Zayin HaVolim, and then it says over here that shofar who lashon shufra yoifi panim da atika. This is the yoifi panim, the purity of the face, the beauty of the face of Atik, which is not moichin. So you have chachma bina, and then you have even higher than that, which is keser. So through blowing the shofar, when it plays the panim madim in the face, and it's brought down the svarim that you should see actually about the K after he blows the shofar, it's a big skula, is he's drawing down from Atik, which is revealed through the shofar when his face turns red. So even though the idea is drawing down moichin, on the higher madrega, it's not this, on a higher level, it's not this drawing down moichin, you're actually drawing down tainuk. Let's see cover.
What is the redness of the face?
It represents the beauty, the shufra, the beauty. Lahavin, let's leave a little from Baal Shem because we have to get into this. It's a big shtickle, so we have to see if we can learn this, but we'll try. Lahavin yidkiz a shofar a pikavanas Baal Shem. So this shtickle in Baal Shem al Torah, where it talks about understanding the Kiyah Shofar according to the Kavanas of Baal Shem, comes from the Alter Rebbe Siddur. So we're not going to read it over here because we're going to read it in the next page. So it's in the Baal Shem Tov al Torah, but he's quoting from the Alter Rebbe Siddur. And this is a very interesting shtickle because to understand the Kavanas of Baal Shem, this is the Torah to understand the Kavanas of Baal Shem, and to understand the Kavanas of Baal Shem and Tkiyas. Now, we know the Kavanas of Baal Shem. There's Kavanas of Baal Shem on mikveh. We know this. It's printed in the Chesed Lavra, Maranaim. It's printed in the other Sfarim. We don't know what the Kavanas of Baal Shem on Tkiyas are. Where's the Kavanas of Baal Shem on Tkiyas? And if you look at this Maimer, it's a very interesting Maimer because he says Kavanas of Baal Shem, but he doesn't say what the Kavanas of Baal Shem is. So this is the Kavanas of Baal Shem. This guy and once in the Suda by the Rebbe, they asked him the Shaila, where's the Kavanas of Baal Shem in the Suda? He said, no, this is what the Alter Rebbe, the Maimer is the Kavanas of Baal Shem. That's the Kavanas of Baal Shem. There was a Messiah. This was the Kavanas of Baal Shem. So let's see what the Alter Rebbe says. Lahavin inu Kiyah Shofar, to understand the idea of Kiyah Shofar, al pi Kavanas of Baal Shem Tov, al pi the Kavanas of Baal Shem. What's the idea of Kiyah Shofar? First, we have to understand, to bring down Hakdama, one basic principle, the difference between Koil and Dibur. So, again, we remember, Koil, we said this is already from the Ari. Koil is connected to Shem Hashem. Koil is connected to transcendence. Koil is connected to Shamayim. And Dibur is connected to Dafke for the creation. There seems to be a Mamutza, some type of intermediary, Bein HaKol VaDibur. She'ena berach hakol, gam leberach hadibur. With this mumutza, this intermediary, is not simply a kol. It's not simply sound, but it's not either it's not either words. What's shot? Hine amitias inyan koil. The true definition of koil, hu rak kol poshut. Real koil, real sound, is a completely undifferentiated sound. Murkav me'esh ma'im ruach hafer. Has Aish, it's like what we'll call breath, as Alter Rebbe is calling coil, but pure breath, like the soundless breath. So the soundless breath has Aish, has like heat, right? When you're breathing, it has Mayim, has like moisture, and has Ruach, obviously has wind. God, this is brought down the Svarim, Sefer HaKanim brings down, that's why what you're doing by blowing the shofar, you're blowing Aish, Mayim, Ruach in the inanimate object, which is a shofar, which is you're creating animation to something that's inanimate, so you're recreating creation. So it's like a bedugma of creation. So the idea is v'nikar ruach oy hevel bilvad. This is what Alter Rebbe calls ruach's wind or pure breath. ואין בגדר oisis adibur klal, b'chinas in adibur, udafik b'chinas havaras oisis mechulakim. Because dibur is already, speech is already something that's already divided. And which dibur is already has very specific and a formation of a very particular sound. So the kol pashut is a soundless sound. And then from the soundless sound, what is created eventually from the soundless sound is actually speech, right? Speech is an articulation of breath. So nimtza rachok erech muhusa dibur muhusa kol pashut sheyitzim hevel alev. So there's a very strong dichotomy, separation between the original breath and speech. He says, no, the really truth is that there's actually an in-between stage. The Zohar says that koil and dibur, sound and speech, is similar to the klal, to the general, and the prat, which is specific. The prat, tzarech leklal. The prat, the details need the principle, which means you can't have speech without breath. The klal, tzarech leprat. But the principle, the klal, needs the prat in order to be articulated. That you can't breathe sound without first making the sound of This is, if you know a little bit Abalafia, if you know a little bit the Ramak, which he quotes Chayel Mahaba, this is very much strong connected to Teitzei Ramak, and you don't find this in Teitzei very much. But we know, and this is why it's Parshas. This is also Teitzei Baal Shem. We know that Baal Shem actually the Shlit and Shem. The Baal Shem once said that his Mushish and Shem is more connected to Ramak than everything. There's certainly definitely a very strong connection, because sound, colors, these are things that you don't find so much Kisari, but you find it in Teitzei Baal Shem. There's actually a Messiah that the Magid, when he came to learn Baal Shem, the thing that he taught him that really revealed to him that the Baal Shem was the Baal Shem, was a sefer that's one from the Kabbalah Sagoinim, which actually talks all about sound, about the oisius. You can't even hear breath. Because is
also aleph.
That's what he's saying. Ha or ha is aleph. And then he says, or a, it depends how you breathe.
Is also aleph.
Oh, so it doesn't say ga, da, pa, go, do, gu. It's all part of aleph. It's all the sound of aleph. You can't get any koil without some type of sound that's coming out. So the sound is that sound of awe. The truth is, it's not really a full aleph. You're not aleph. You're not saying aleph. You're just going oh. When you want to say aleph, you say aleph lamed pei. Also, but the truth is, if you say, let's say the word Omar, for example, so you'd also say aleph lamed pei, but you're saying right? Or Omar. Okay, that's the point. Generally, it's the sound, which Alter Rebbe says the sound, and therefore that's the sound. So he's trying again. This is all music on Teitzei and the Zohar. That's saying that we're trying to get the Parshas. We're trying to do on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the Haschalas Abriya. It's the new creation. It's the new exhale of the year. If it's the new exhale of the year, there's a new Ischachas Abriya, and the Ischachas Abriya has to do dafke beratzon, with a desire, with moichin. So the moichin now desires it. It's not just clapping wood, but there's a moichin to create the world. So you have to go back to the origin. What's the origin? The origin is going to be that sound. The way the coil, the pure coil, eventually becomes havara, becomes some type of sound. That sound becomes a sound. That sound eventually becomes dibur. which is the world, the way that the world will be created. Yeah. So next page. Next paragraph. He loved the time lishmi zoyval become mach should move the mayor is that why do we need that Arizal? Why do we actually need that? So says gabel lama bavorizar dafka. Why only the aleph? Why specifically the aleph, which is like the beginning letter of creation, of the aleph base? Hinu yesh lahakmak damachas b'cholei savos dav medavar shik mashmiya makabel. He efshe shiyumshach savos makabel mashia kim oif shiyumshach mitchila davar echel mutzah shiyikol bechinas mahusam. Mashmiya bechinas mahusam makabel. Saying that any type of movement from one thing to the next, there has to be some type of intermediary that allows, that's partly you, partly me, therefore we can meet with each other. Right? If I don't understand you, you don't understand me, then we're not going to talk. But if I understand you a little bit, you understand me a little bit, that's the mamut, so therefore I can have a dialogue with you. So in other words, you need partly something of the mashpia, partly something of the makabel. That's one akudim. We're going to go through this, we're not going to go through this a long time, but go turn the next page, to page 400. You see page 400? On top it says 400. And on the bottom, I guess it doesn't show 400. So it's the page. No. The top of the page starts by Kol Mashiach Lahaskel.
490.
490?
490.
Oh, it is 490, you're right. It's like 400 to me. Okay. So on the right column, 4 lines on the bottom. So we're trying to make a short sikkum of this mimer. The idea of Rosh Hashanah is binyan malchus, the creation of malchus, that it should be a full parts of in a correct relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to Hashem, in a way that's panim upanim. So Yeshua ben Zion Echad b'shvil hashpa le'olam biyah tzarich l'hamshel moichin adashim l'zun b'chinas moichin da'ava. Like we said before, in order for zun, for Zorampen, to be attached to malchus, which malchus becomes the force that animates creation, right? That's the creation. In order for zun has to be awakened. Zorampen has to be awakened. How does Zorampen being awakened? Through drawing new moichin, which is moichin da'ava, right? That's what we're doing. Va'beis b'shvil b'chinotelos and the shamas. That's one thing. So you want the world to sustain, you have to draw down more moichin. More moichin, more reason for being. If there's a reason to create, then the reason allows the Zohar Ampin to be awakened. Zohar Ampin gives Ashpa, draws on Chayas, to the life force, to Malchus. Malchus gives to the world, so therefore the world is sustained. You're following? So moichin allows the creation. However, b'shvil tolos haneshamish shunim briyas adam rishon b'chafei be'elul nivra olam, because chafei elul, the 25th elul, was the creation of the world. But adam rishon b'yem avav sh'rosh Hashanah. When there's other mission was created on the 6th day of creation. But the b'shviloi nivra olam, because of man the world is created, this is a high level of creation. In other words, the world has to be created. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why the world is created. But that's not where the tainug lies. Let's say, for example, I'm building a building, right? I have a desire to build a building. I don't know, I'm refurbishing a building. I want this building, I love this building. Or I'm writing a book, whatever it is, I'm doing a project. I understand, the seichel tells me, and then in order to build a building, I must build floor 1, floor 2, let's say 3-story building, right? This is the way I want to do it. But where's my tainug? My tainug is when the building is finished. The tachlis is the tainug, right? The end result is what draws my pleasure. When I finally have the building, I say, I can have pleasure with the building. So the seichel, the understanding that I know that the building has to be, that's the way I'm going to structure this, is the moichin is not the tachlis. But the tachlis is the tainuk. The tachlis is the pleasure. When the Eibusha is creating the world and saying, I'm creating the animals, the plants, I'm creating the entire universe. Okay. But there's a tachlis in the world. If the tachlis is, should be a tainuk in the world. That Hashem has a tainuk, Hashem has a sabbath, Hashem has a desire to have a relationship with what? With a sentiment being, with someone that has a relationship with Him. So, in other words, the whole creation from prior to the total creation of Adam and Chava is a creation of Mitzad the Moichin, not Mitzad the tainuk. You're following? But we want to draw down the Shamas, right? We want to say that the Rosh Hashanah is a day of Nishmas Yisrael, that we have the tainuk. To do the tainuk, we can't just draw down Moichin.
But
We
you
have
must have moichin
You must have moichin.
to
But
tainik. Otherwise, there's no tainik.
no, you must know. Tainug brings out moichin. Tainug means I have a desire for this thing. Therefore, I need to understand how am I going to do it. So I have a plan. The plan is the seichel.
There cannot be any tainuk. Because it's like the creation before the mankind.
Yeah.
It's like achar because there's no moichin, there's no understanding, there's no
There's no tainug.
there's no time.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about beside the boira. The boira has the kaviyachal. We're drawing down koyach haliki kaviyachal. The koyach haliki says this animal has to exist in Africa.
Right.
Okay, why does it have to be in Africa? But this is part of the plan. There's a plan. So there's a moichin here. There's a divine intelligence that says this has to be here. It doesn't mean that there's a tainug there. The tainug is that you should be there and make a bracha. Understand? That's already the tainug. That's where the pleasure is drawn out. That's the tachlis. But the moichin is there because otherwise that's the intelligence, the inherent intelligence. So you have to do in Rosh Hashanah. You really need to do two things. Mitzad you have to do two ideas. From the level of the chitzonis oilamas, from the external part of the universe, we have to draw down moichin. From the level of pnimis oilamas, that we want to have a real relationship upon him, we have to draw down tainug. You follow? So two things have to happen: moichin and tainug. So he says, "V'init ki Shofar hu ayde bechinas am shachas pnimis am moichin." Da aber mekor de kula shu Shofar shosh bechinas pnimis. Adesh mei pnimis abba am shachas moichin abba zum beshil todes ad admission. Bechinas todes shom bechinas pnimis atzas am moichin. Bechinas tip abba genau. Shmuel bedoym like mashkal v'yom kimas adam tzalmoy. The Alter Rebbe says in the mashal of the birth of a child. The birth of a child, there could be a birth of something through seichel, and there could be a birth of through intelligence, and there could be a birth of something through tainug. If I have an idea, and I birth this idea, it's an idea that's lying in my head, and now I give it out, and I develop it, and I birth this idea. Okay, it comes from me. It's birth from me, but it doesn't have gashmius. It's not. This is what the Arizal says, that through bechinas neshikin, which is Abba v'Ima, through the level of kissing, which is the higher level, Abba v'Ima, that's the way malachim are created. Angels are created. What does it mean that angels are created? It's a spiritual creation. There's some type of yichud that creates creates spiritual reality. But in order to create physical reality, to actually create a hemshcha of you, something, a miniature form of you that has physical reality, you need tainug, right? The tainug creates the possibility of creating of a neshama. In order for neshama to come down this world, you actually need tainug, right? In other words, that's the way it works. It's reflective. That's like by us. In order to create an idea, we can have moichin. Moichin create another moichin, but it's not a physical object. In order to create something in a davar mamoshius that has the essence of who we are, we need tainug. So the tainug is atzmius. The tainug draws out the atzmius of the person. The more tainug, the more atzmius of the person is. So therefore, we have to get to the chin, not the chin is the moichin the abba. We have to get to the moichin. We have to get the pnimius the moichin the abba, the inner aspect of everything, which is the actual idea of tainug. So this is what Alter Rebbe read in the next page. On the first column. Even though the Teitzei, you see, it's maybe 5 lines at the bottom. The page starts on Oilam Esu Reish Mem Zayin, Reish Mem Vav. Even though the Teitzei Beer, yeah. Gam Lahaven Lama B'Kol Pasha Davka. In Yesh Lakdim Mashal Aleph U Kamoika Adam Sha'isam Malachim Etzad Eze Taining V'Rotzen Sheyesh Laba. Hine Bevadish Etzarch Lahaske B'Seichel Tam Gamken Lama Yasakach. When a person has a taining, a desire, I have a desire to create something. Certainly, you also have to understand how am I going to create it. Then from where I have a desire to create something, then I understand how I'm going to create it, and then my midas, my love, my attraction to the thing to create is revealed. And then the final act is that my moichin, my midas, my attributes are now awakened and they do the action. So it comes out that what is really being drawn down, the tainug, the desire, the shmak. The tainug is drawing down the moichin is drawing down the seichel is drawing down the midas is drawing down the action. But their origin comes from the tainug. Yeah. However, if he's tired. He's doing an action, he gets tired. What you really need to do is awaken the desire. Which should awaken the seichel, the intelligence. Because if not, you're just going to stop working. And you can't say, you can't say, okay, I'm going to do it, and therefore it's going to awaken Tainug. No! I got to get to the place of Tainug. I must get to the place where I have the desire to do it. So how do I get to the place of the desire? Right? That's the Kshayla. How do I get to the place of the desire? And that's what he says. And then he goes through the whole thing, Barichis, the marshal, and then he goes to the bottom of the line. The whole Shah, how you merapa yodid, like 10 lines, 15 lines, like yodid l'asses m'brius oilam im loishem oirim mechodesh l'koyach ha'tainig ha'poshash ha'atzah yamshach ha'tainig prati l'chacham l'chacham l'meichel. You have to get to the place of the tainig, and the tainig, the pleasure has to be drawn down. And therefore, it's not through halas, chachma, or dibur, or maisa, because those things themselves need tainig in order for them to be. La'atzmius ha'matzel, shemenu menu koyach ha'poshet ha'tainig ha'poshet, shishbi tainig prati l'koyach ha'seichel ha'chachma shemtrim ha'pinimis abo, nimshach midu dim maisa, v'ken iyef shel oir b'dibur gam l'maseichel midu ha'pinimis kol poshet ha'yetzim ha'lev. Therefore, the only thing that you can do is you can give a scream. Kol poshet. Because anything that is not poshet, anything that is already defined, is a definition, is an aseichel. I say something, okay, it's cute. It's still something. It's like the nimshal would be like in terms of father's relationship with a child. It's like when your child is complaining about something, and he's telling you something, and he's explaining to you. Okay, you understand it. But the child cries. You don't need an explanation. You just awaken my tiny that I love you. Something that's much more. You tell me I'm complaining. My hurt hurts. Okay, it's okay. We'll work it out. The child gives a cry. The kol poshet awakens the tainig apnimi. Or kol poshet ubechinas atzmis hamashpia. You see that? Then the next page. 402. She'akol poshet zehu bechinas atzmis hamashpia. V'yesh begam ken bechinas moked mekabel. That's what he says. That's why you have to do dafke with the kol shofar. You have to actually blow the shofar to create the ah sound, the cry of the ah. Why dafke the ah? Because shu reishel chav bezayis hamashav nedibur. What you have to do is you have to draw down that tainug into something that is relatable. Let's try to explain a little bit what the Alter Rebbe is saying is like this. And this is the Nikudah. There's like a paradox here. There's like a little bit of paradox over here in Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah is the time of Ana Emlech. That's Hashem Melech. Hashem's a king, not a moishel, but a king. King means that there's a ratzon l'melucha. There's a desire that we desire to be the king. That we desire to be in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We desire the Eibishter. And because we desire, so it awakens the tainug of the melucha that exists in the on the highest madrega. Now, in order for someone to be a king, there has to be two things over here. You can't be a king over animals, because then you're a moishel. However, you can be a king over your child. You can't be a melech. You can't be a melech over your father. Your father can be your melech. Why? Because by definition, a father's relationship with a melech means Amar Malach al Keturah. Melech means this is the way it lays down the law. This is the way it has to be. You're submitted to me. There's the im kavonim, im kavodim. I'm like a child in relation to Hashem. Child means I come from Hashem. I'm one with Hashem. I come with Hashem. Hashem loves me. This is this one level. A melech means I'm an evil Hashem. I do Hashem's work. So there's the period aspect. There has to be something that's.
Be a ben melech?
But then you're shtickle melech. Then you're shtickle melech. But the real ana emlech means I'm avata myself. I have no ratzon. You're the king. You're the king. I have no ratzon. Yeah, you could be, but then there's already shtickle more the ben. When there's the ben and the eved. This is the Rebbe Rashab has in Samach Vav. He talks about this two nekudas. The ben is the closest. No, there's a letter for Rabbinim that I think it was the Mechaber of Sefer called Simcha, which is a Sefer on the Kotzk, and also Rabbinim, that didn't come to him to Rosh Hashanah, and he wrote him a small little letter. And the guy complained that he was complained he wasn't by his Rebbe, and the letter starts off that Mirachik Hashem Nira, that Hashem we see from a distance, and Vanochi and Vani B'Seich Ami Yeshavas. This is the way this starts off, and it said, and the letter says that the Or is connected to Bina, and the Roz is connected to Malchus, and the Malchus awakens the Bina. It's like it's a 2-line letter, but if you look at the letter, what the Rabbinim is saying is basically the whole Bechina of Rosh Hashanah has 2 almost conflicting mindsets. On one hand, we're saying is I am in a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's a panim relationship, and therefore there's tainug in the relationship, there's desire in the relationship, and it's not just like a relationship that a person would have with an animal, right? On the other hand, we're saying that Hashem is the Melech. So the Melech means I'm distant. So am I distant or am I close? Is Mirachak Hashem Nira or B'Seich Ami Yeshavas? Do I feel close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu or far from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And the truth is, it's actually Avinu Malkeinu. That's the peak of Rosh Hashanah. It's the Avinu and Malkeinu. It's a simultaneously paradox that Hashem is king, which means I'm nothing. I'm just submitting to the Ratzon Hashem, and yet I am Mamlech the Eibishter. If I'm Mamlech the Eibishter, I have to be a Metzias. I have to be something. I have to exist in order to say that I'm in a relationship. Because you would think that if I'm in a relationship with him, I'm just an Eved, then Hashem's a Moshel. What do you mean? It's I have no Ratzon, I have no desire. Hashem, whatever you want. This is Hashem's will. But Hashem doesn't want that. Hashem wants we should have a Ratzon. So if you have a Ratzon, then you're already Metzias. You understand? The way it goes, it moves back and forth. Mm-hmm. So what the Alter Rebbe is saying, is like this. We want to be Ma'oyer the Tainik Pnimi. We want to be Ma'oyer the Atzmis HaTainik. The Atzmis HaTainik, not the Moichin of the Father, not the Moichin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol. We also need the Moichin, because the Moichin is like the system, right? The system should be maintained. But we also want that it should be a Tainik, there should be a desire. Desire will make sure that it'll be upon him, a face-to-face relationship, an intimate relationship. So we have to cry out from the inner essence of ourself, the Atzmius of ourself, with the coil, the pure sound of which is the Atzmius, the Tainik of within our own self, the Atzmius of our own self, which will touch the Atzmius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? But by touching the Atzmius of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have to have some type of hook that relates us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like if your child cries to you, and that awakens that cry, awakens that desire that you have for your child, it's because he is your child. There's the relationship already before that.
But then it awakens your desire to Hashem as well?
Correct. A loop in. But in other words, so he's saying there has to be some type of like hook that even though we're saying Mirachik Hashem nearly, so I'm coming from a place that I'm far, and therefore I'm reawakening this place of desire, but there's some type of memutza for both, Kaviyachol. This is what I was saying at the beginning. There's a mitzvah for me to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's also a mitzvah Kaviyachol where HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, through this coil that now has a certain havara of the aleph, that's the way I can be mamshech, I can draw down the tainug into the seichel into the midas, and the midas into the thing, and the world can be created. It's sort of saying, because it's paradoxical, it's like almost simultaneously we need 2 separate things, you need something that's a little bit of that and a little bit of that to sort of bridge this gap. I think if we think about it just like in the human experience, it's like a very practical level, we understand what this means. If there's a child that cries and it's not your child, of course you should feel also, but the more relationship you have with the child, the more you're going to feel the pain of the child, right? In other words, when there is already a relationship, the relationship could be even stronger. Exactly. So what the Alter was saying is the havara is our way of saying we actually have part of this coil. We have a part of the coil, the pure coil. We don't have pure coil. We're not Mishamayim Shematias coil. We don't have the coil Pashut B'Yoser. We don't have the Pshitas Atzmus. But we have something that's a resemblance of that Pshitas. Something that's a resemblance of that purity, that's that infinite purity. What is a resemblance in the human condition that resembles that purity? That's the Asam.
Probably the first thing is the tekiah. That's the
that's the
oil,
alcohol.
and
Yeah,
then it comes down.
that breaks down the
And
tuas.
then the tekiah.
That's correct. That's correct. The old tzaddikim say that. Correct. And that's why it's chesed, gvur, and tiferes. So chesed is damshacha, the kol pasha, but it's the kol pasha. It's saying what's within the human being. Let's talk about for ourselves. What is within the human being the closest thing that we have that's transcendent of all definitions and distinctions and separations? It's that sound. The silent sound doesn't exist because we don't hear it. So okay, that's silence that's beyond us or in us, but it's nothing that's being expressed. What is the highest expression of the human being? Exactly. Insan? The highest expression of what it means to be a human being would be that ha sound. And the lowest expression of kaviyachal, of the coil of the Eibishter, would be the ah sound. That's why Be'hei Nivra Olam, the Rebbe says, the Be'hei Nivra Olam is the ha sound, or the yud is Olam Haba, but the hey is the world of creation. So in that space where it's like the most transcendent element within ourselves that can be expressed, we reveal that pureness of ourselves. That awakens the pureness of Koyach Atzmius, the Tainug, to come down and draw down and bring down all the ashpas that has to be brought down in Rosh Hashanah. So this seems to be what the Alter Rebbe is saying. Really, in the Kavanas of Baal Shem is really what the Arizal is saying. And when the Arizal is talking about these ideas of drawing down Atik is Tainug. That's what it means. It's the same idea. And the Arizal is talking about in very high level madrigas or like abstract level. And the Baal Shem is saying, no, it's to draw down the timing of the Eibishter, to draw down this pure timing. Hashem says, I want to be in a relationship with you. I want to be with you. I want to be. You want to be with me. I want to be with you. That's the whole. That's the nesama. That's the desire for the creation. The whole timing of the creation is that there should be a dibur tachlim. There should be someone that exists. It says, I want to be in a relationship with Hashem. I want to be in a panim relationship with Him. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. That we should have a panim relationship with Hashem. It should be real and intimate and awake. So,
how do we get it to the place of our time with Hashem? We know how to awaken His time to us. How do we get our time to Him?
I think even the cry. That's what he's saying.
Bring time back.
That's the. It's like he's saying. It's the pure cry. It's the purest cry that we can give. It's like it's saying like despite all the narishkeit and all the nonsense, everything that's going on in our life, and all the place of likims and dinim and constrictions and limitations and parnitzoitzes and sheichnitzaitzes and there's all different sparks and concealments that are going on in life. Really, we just want that pureness to come out. We just want to be close to the Hashem. The pureness of self wants to be revealed, and that ha sound is that. I just want to be with you. It's Iruchun God. That's it. Iruchun God. That's what I want. That's what Rosh Hashanah is. So we have to work on the avodah and Elul. When we work on Elul, when it comes Rosh Hashanah, that could be a real Rosh